There is widespread fear in the United States. Russia is launching a nuclear bomb into orbit. What does this contain? And violating the 100-year-old agreement that has kept conflicts from devastating the world. The U.S. needs to convene urgent discussions and find a strategy to address an unprecedented situation. A nuclear weapon in outer space. For many years, the concept of launching nuclear weapons into space has been discussed, but it has always been considered extreme enough that all parties understood it was not a viable option. However, we live in a chaotic environment nowadays, and unconventional thoughts are more accepted. Therefore, when the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, Representative Mike Turner, raised concerns that Russia was thinking about sending a nuclear anti-satellite weapon into orbit, the U.S. administration had to act promptly. As to Biden administration officials, the weapon exists, but is now in the development stage and does not present an immediate danger. This is not very reassuring. Russia is currently engaged in a proxy conflict with the U.S. in the Ukraine conflict. And in this conflict, the U.S. has heavily relied on data collected by its satellites to assist Ukraine. Therefore, if Russia advances its nuclear anti-satellite capacity, it may soon be used. Reportedly, the new weapon is of EMP variety. This type of weapon would generate a burst of electromagnetic radiation and a stream of highly charged particles that would travel through space to interfere with not just the intended satellite, but also other satellites orbiting Earth. Deploying a large nuclear-powered EMP weapon into orbit might significantly alter the daily lives of people worldwide in ways that many may not have considered. Television, phone calls, GPS, and weather monitoring, all reliant on satellites, could cease suddenly. The military relies on advanced technologies in space for several functions such as early warning, intelligence collection, navigation, missile guidance, communications, and data exchange. Losing access to these capabilities would happen immediately. Whole groups of smaller satellites, like the Starlink satellites from SpaceX, that Ukraine has effectively utilized in its current conflict with Russia, will be destroyed. In addition, the debris resulting from the loss of these satellites could form a cloud of hazardous space debris, moving at very high speeds and able to cause more harm to any remaining valued assets in space. When Russia destroyed a satellite with a missile in 2021 to show its powers, 1,783 fragments of debris were observed orbiting the Earth at speeds exceeding 17,500 EI, with the potential to harm or obliterate a spacecraft. Even while the 1967 Outer Space Treaty is the most detailed of all the international accords related to outer space and prohibits countries from placing weapons in space, it's worth mentioning that Russia has been withdrawing from several of the post-Cold War deals with the U.S. Relations between Russia and the U.S. are worsening quickly. If necessary, Russia might withdraw from the 1967 Outer Space Pact, which is one of the few remaining treaties currently in effect. Without legal restrictions prohibiting Russia from significantly expanding its military capabilities in space, the U.S. might also need to do the same, potentially leading to a resurgence of tensions reminiscent of the Cold War. Actually, besides the rumored new EMP weapon, Russia is developing several more weapons intended to destroy targets in space. Here they are. New Google Earth photographs showed the building of a high-tech laser system at a Russian space center, which has the potential to disable satellites in space. The building is being constructed at the Korona Space Center of the Russian Ministry of Defense, where the large and successful Rotten 600 radio telescope is located. This weapon's presence was revealed in a thorough analysis using a large collection of public satellite imagery requests from Russian industrial companies and financial papers from Russia. The examinations showed the creation of a project called Kalina, which was outlined in the financial paperwork acquired by the Space Review as a laser system created for electro-optical warfare that can permanently blind enemy satellites by emitting laser pulses so intense that they can harm. Optical sensors. This is an improvement on dazzlers, which are lasers designed to temporarily blind optical equipment. The Kalina would use a special tracking system with adaptive optics to improve its ability to deal with atmospheric disturbances. The laser that was activated has a system that both sends and receives signals to gauge the laser light that bounces back from the target. This helps to precisely aim at the optical systems located on the targets, which are critical areas. Damaging these areas would render the target satellite unable to function properly. Kalina will enhance the Peresvet mobile laser dazzler, which has been in use since late 2019. Aside from Kalina and Peresvet, Russia is also developing 3 attack-capable satellites for aggressive purposes in space. The initial one, known as Kamikaze, was sent out in 2014. It featured remarkable agility at high speeds that, if equipped with projectile weapons, would make it similar to a fighter jet in space, like a fighter satellite. However, it could not shoot projectiles. The 2017 version of it included a smaller satellite capable of firing projectiles. The third item, the nesting doll, was introduced in 2019. It merged the capabilities of the previous 2 launches, allowing it to move at various speeds and fire projectiles. These are already numerous concerns for the US to be concerned about. However, there is additional information. Russia is not the only country that is obligated by the 1967 Outer Space Treaty and is developing significant anti-satellite capabilities. China is a very close second with its fractional orbital bombardment system. China's fractional orbital bombardment technology is just as ominous as it sounds. Referred to as SSOBB, this system is a missile capable of carrying nuclear weapons. It travels into low Earth orbit and then descends at the appropriate moment to crash into a target anywhere on Earth. It functions similarly to an intercontinental ballistic missile, ICBM, but has the advantage of greater range and significantly higher speeds. China tested this weapon in 2021, surprising US intelligence. This type of weapon may rapidly damage the reputation of existing missile defense systems. Once deployed, a FOB ascends to low Earth orbit and orbits the planet until its target is visible. After the target is identified, the hypersonic missile descends from orbit and crashes into its target at speeds reaching Mach 27. When you combine these very fast hypersonic speeds with a remarkable level of agility, China has developed a highly unpredictable weapon. This aims to reduce the US reaction time to just a few minutes from when they detect a missile until it reaches US territory, if that is the intended target. However, if the goal is a satellite in low Earth orbit, that spacecraft is essentially lost. A satellite being a target is a probable scenario, as China, similar to Russia, has recently demonstrated interest in being able to respond to SpaceX's satellites. A 2022 article in the Chinese journal Modern Defense Technology by researchers from the Beijing Institute of Tracking and Telecommunications Technology suggested the need for a mix of soft and hard kill techniques to disable SpaceX's Starlink satellites and disrupt the constellation's main operating system. As stated in the document, Starlink is seen as a useful military asset that can offer improved and dependable communication capacities for the US military's deployed combat units globally. It might also offer high-quality images and perhaps real-time video for U.S. forces. and certainly China wouldn't desire that in a conflict with the US. However, the US would not passively observe its main competitors developing weapons capable of destroying some of its most important resources. The US reacts to the development of space-based weapons that may potentially harm its satellites. The US military is increasing the number of satellites in orbit to carefully monitor almost every potential threat in space promptly, including those traveling at very high hypersonic speeds. When a danger is identified, the US military may respond with projectiles capable of reaching space. The US Space Defense Agency, also known as SDA, revealed that it has granted contracts worth $1. $3 billion to launch the initial group of 28 tiny satellites into space, with the launch planned to take place in under 3 years. These satellites are created to offer the early detection of missiles and tracking capacities for the future. Countries' defense architecture for space, the National Defense Space System, includes several parts, such as 2 primary levels of space-based platforms, the transit layer and the tracking layer. The transport layer is a communication level that aims to offer reliable, strong, fast military data and connection globally to all types of warfighter platforms. It is designed as a group of satellites ranging in number from 300 to over 500 in low Earth orbit. Once finished, 95% of Earth will have at least 2 satellites visible simultaneously, while 99% of the planet will have at least 1 satellite visible at any given time. The tracking layer will offer worldwide signals for alerting, monitoring, and aiming at sophisticated missile dangers, such as hypersonic missile systems, using space-based sensing algorithms, innovative processing methods, data integration among sensors, and tactical data products that may be accessed when needed. The SDA's most recent $3 billion agreement and allocated $700 million to Harris Technologies for 14 satellites and a $617 million to Northrop Grumman Strategic Space Systems for 14 satellites. This funding is intended for the initial set of satellites in the tracking layer. The satellites that are produced will be sent into orbit from the SDA's operations and integration facilities, as well as the U.S. Army's Redstone Arsenal in Alabama. Although they are relatively tiny, 4 separate launches, each containing 7 satellites, will be required to get these satellites into space. This is because every satellite will be positioned in a polar orbit. In other words, the satellites will be positioned in 4 distinct levels to efficiently cover the entire globe from north to south, enabling continuous surveillance of the world. The initial launch is scheduled for April 2025, and it will lead to Russia and China having to destroy a far higher number of satellites in space compared to the present. Russia, China, and the United States are once more vying for international dominance in space. Their rivalry has recently escalated by targeting satellites in orbit. If they fail to control each other, this might lead to the end of the world as we know it. To help control them, subscribe to this channel and give this video a like. Thank you for viewing.